very much for that. So I was just saying thank you very much, Carol, for spelling out what DEI means, because I had the questions in the coffee break about what does it mean exactly. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm really, really pleased to moderate that panel today. It doesn't work, it works. I stopped moving. All right, I stopped looking at my panelists. It's very inclusive. I'm even somewhat excited about moderating that panel. We had just before the panel started what was supposed to be initially a very short catch-up with the panelists, 5 to 10 minutes. In the end, it lasted 1 hour and 5 minutes. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I can't see you.
Yes, it is.
All right. I'm also very pleased to welcome on stage my panelists. So I think you understood this is going to be... Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's oh my God. Here you are. So yes, I'm very pleased to be joined on stage by my panelists. I think you'll find out very quickly that the discussions we'll get today are going to be extremely lively, stimulating, I think. Mm-hmm.
No pressure.
Yes.
No
and I'd
pressure.
like to start by welcoming you, Sam White. You're the founder and CEO of Freedom Services Group and Stella Insurance, respectively. You have operation in the UK and Australia. And if I'm summarizing very quickly what your companies are doing, this is insurance product made by women for women. I know there's so much more to say about what you're doing, but as a summary, that's it, right?
Yeah, that is definitely it.
Okay. I'd also like to welcome you, Suzanne Williams-Charles. You're Director of Policy and Regulation at ABIR. This is the Association of Bermuda's Insurers and Reinsurers. Warm welcome. And finally, I'd like to welcome you, Benoît Chasseguet. So you've been working for Chubb for about 10 years. Mm-hmm. Happy anniversary.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
But you've also been appointed country president France for Chubb again about 2 months ago.
Absolutely.
That's correct. So when we had the discussion before, I said D&I, why D&I in insurance matters, why D&I in general matters. I first thought that was a very provocative question because we just ended a couple of days the European Diversity Month. We're right in the middle of the Pride Month. We heard this morning also our panelists speaking about the IS work on diversity, equity and inclusion. That's a strategic priority for supervisory associations at international level. We heard about the protection gap. We heard that the protection gap and the pension gap is especially affecting women. We heard about diversity and somewhat about inclusion, but I also had the impression that in a way what we heard this morning is contrasting with the reality that we're facing every day. So I made my own survey, which is really the own personal survey, probably absolutely not reliable and representative. So actuaries, please don't listen to what I'm going to say now. But I asked colleagues, friends, contacts working for different industries with different education, different nationalities and different backgrounds, what they thought about D&I was, and whether they thought that D&I is important and whether that matters. And in general, I was, well, happily, positively surprised. I was reassured that people were saying, yes, DEI, that matters. But when I asked them why, the only response I had is, because this is the right thing to do. And I had nothing else, no explanation. And then I also had some people saying, very few, not so many, yes, it does matter, but is that really a priority nowadays? And then I had also a couple of them saying, yes, it probably matters for me, but apparently not for my company and not for my employer. And that came a bit as a shock to me, I have to say. So I had the impression really that we had a momentum a few years ago after the civil society movement, Black Lives Matter, about Me Too as well, where we were all speaking about D&I. We saw also the industry, including the insurance industry, making, I think, tremendous progress in relation to D&I. But I'm just wondering, whether the momentum has passed now. What is going on? So perhaps to start with, we should start from the beginning and look at the basics. And I would turn to you, Suzanne, if that's fine for you. But again, I'm expecting the discussion to be pretty lively and interactive. From your perspective, based on your experience, does D&I in general matter? And what are the benefits also of D&I?
Okay, so I'll start by saying thank you very much to Insurance Europe for the invitation to speak here in Paris. It's my first time in Paris, and I'm absolutely enjoying it. So maybe taking a step back, and I think we'll talk about DEI, and maybe we'll break down each of those words, right? So the first thing I would say is, yes, it matters. So when you're looking at diversity, there have been studies over many years that talk about the increased productivity of diverse teams. So I think that, if you looked at evidence that's been prepared and published, then it's evident that having a diverse group of individuals that have different perspectives, different backgrounds, different ages, all those things, produce better results at the end of the day. And then when you think about the equity piece, you look at that diverse group of people, and the importance around that is how do you make sure that diverse group of individuals actually are treated equitably within the organization. Because as you spoke about the comments from some of the colleagues that you polled, it seemed like people felt disgruntled in a sense if their organization did not embrace DEI. And so, people will do a good job and people have various levels of work ethic, but I can't be convinced that if you don't feel fulfilled or appreciated at work, or if you feel like you are being underpaid versus someone else, you are not bringing your entire self. You're not going to be giving your 100%. You may feel that you are, but I feel like, deep down inside, if you're feeling like you are not being represented, it's very difficult for you to give that employer 100% of yourself. And so the importance, obviously, when you have an organization, you want your employees to be giving 100% to the job that they're doing. And I think if they feel that way, they won't be doing that. And then if you take the I piece and you look at the inclusion, you can have a diverse group of people that you've hired and brought into the organization. And then you can actually pay them fairly. You can pay them equitably, and you can treat them fairly within the organization on a level. But if you haven't invested in changing the culture and creating a culture that actually makes them feel included and welcomed and represented authentically in the workplace, then you too will not adequately achieve that all that you want to get out of your employees, and thus you will not have the environment that creates the best working environment.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Benoît, we've heard Suzanne explaining why it matters. As I said before, you are the new country president for Chubb France. And I read in your short CV, which is available on the app, that you're responsible for the performance strategy and development of Chubb in France. Do you think that D&I can actually contribute to these objectives, and how?
Well, first, like Suzanne, I'd like to really extend my thanks for the invitation, and specifically for that topic, because, although we're in the middle of the afternoon, it is still a very important topic to discuss about. And in light of all the risks and all the things that are happening in the world, I'm happy that it's still there, because we still have lots to do. Suzanne has already touched a lot of things, but maybe to be a little bit more specific about performance. We know now that an inclusive environment, at least a diversified environment, doubles, for instance, the cash flow generated by employees. So this is purely money. It's important for us really to consider. The other thing also, and I think I heard Thomas Bubel just before. I don't know whether he's still there, but maybe not. But he did mention something about reputation and attraction. So we need to be an attracting industry, right? We need to attract people. And by the way, talents, definitely, but not just younger talents. We need to attract any kind of population. We need to be able to attract them and also to keep them. And the fact of the fact of being inclusive and also diversify, multiply by 60% increases when you are diversified. So yes, there's a bottom. And I'm relating to the fact that it's about performance. So yes, there is a direct impact, money-wise, in being diversified and inclusive.
Before
Yeah.
Sam jumps in, I just want to, you talked about a lot of statistics, you talked about financial metrics. And what continues to amaze me is that if you walked into any CEO's office and said, if you do this, you will make this much more money, significantly more money, then they likely, unless it was illegal, would say, let's talk more about it, let's figure out how to do that. And it still amazes me that we're still on this path, we're still having this panel about how we diversify organizations when it's been proven over and over again that it actually will make you more money. And just
So we still have to mention it.
exactly,
We have to go on mentioning it.
the moral aspect out of it, it'll make you more money, and there's still a hesitance. And so that's just what continues to be interesting and also frustrating, I think.
And just another thing, maybe this is conversational, so it's not a conversation.
We were going to make a circle at one point. We're going to bring the chairs around.
You'll speak, Sam. I'm sure you'll speak. No, I also want to talk about, expanding your market shares. Again, it's related to, performance. I mean, the fact of being diversified, you reflect the society in front of you, therefore you're expanding the possibilities of growing. I mean, that's also something that makes sense, So going back to your first question, I think you said, does it matter? In the sense, yes, clearly, it does matter.
Right. No, that's very good. It's very good to speak about these different aspects, including the workforce aspects and the performance, and to link the two of them. Getting now to you, Sam. You are passionate about diversity. You are passionate about empowering and supporting women. And last but not least, you're passionate about insurance. So you can combine all
That's
that
a lot of
together.
passion.
That's a lot of passion. But
Passionate
that explains
person.
why you're here today with us also. I was also wondering, because we've not really touched about the specific insurance aspects of D&I so far, but you have all these passions. What is, from your point of view, making insurance different compared to other sectors? Is insurance facing specific challenges that other sectors are not facing when it comes to D&I?
Well, yeah, I mean, insurance has a lot of challenges, and I take myself out of the sector as much as possible. Not because I have anything against the sector. I love insurance, but I think it's important to spend time in other industries to see how we compare. And unfortunately, we don't compare as well as we would want. And I've been sort of questioning, well, why? I was out on the boat last night, we were all chatting, everybody was getting on. It's not that there isn't good people in the industry, there's fabulous people in the industry. So what's stopping us being more diverse? What's stopping people being attracted to the industry? And I actually think fundamentally it's because of what we do. Which is a bit tricky, really, because we can't stop doing what we do. But we spend so much time focusing on data and numbers that we've become much more attractive, particularly to men than women. And we talk about this a lot. Women, and you challenge me on this, am I putting people in boxes? But I think it's fair to say that women tend to lean more into their emotional side, their intuitive side. They like things that are creative. They like things that build connection. And for me, insurance has such a potential to be that, because actually at its fundamental core, what we're doing is bringing people together to support each other. And at its fundamental core, all people actually want is to belong. So, for me, it's imperative that we find a solution to this problem, because insurance has such possibility to solve lots of problems that we've got in the world. But if we're not actually including everybody in that conversation, then we'll only solve problems for certain groups of individuals. And at Stella, what we started doing was analysing what we were insuring. Like, what do we choose to insure? What do we choose to exclude? And some of that absolutely has gender bias in it. I was shocked to discover that most health insurance policies don't cover menopausal cover. 20% of the population at any given time is menopausal. And yet, in most health insurance policies, it's completely excluded. So I think, for me, the excitement and the passion comes from rebalancing this out and leveling us back up.
Excitement, love, passion,
yes.
emotion.
Yes.
We're speaking about insurance, right? That's really impressive. But what I like is that we're making the link also between diversity, equity, inclusion, and creativity and innovation, which is also extremely important for the insurance industry and for our consumers as well, even more important for the consumers. So to have a workforce that understands what the needs of the consumers are and how to truly meet these needs, that's really important. Now the question is, okay, we know D&I is important for the insurance industry and for our consumers, but how do we make it progress in the companies? How do we promote D&I further? Looking at gender, but also looking at the other aspects that are covered by D&I. Suzanne, do you have an idea?
So yes, I have
Many.
many. So I can start by talking about what my organization has done in Bermuda, what the Bermuda market is trying to do. So ABIR are looking to serve their members and also, try to create a space where we can help provide that talent, so provide that diversity, so it's kind of hand-delivered. So for example, as a trade association, we're putting on a seminar for our members. We've invited senior people because they are the change makers, and it's on inclusive leadership, so creating an inclusive environment. So as companies, you have to provide people with the tools to do better. As a Bermuda market, ABIR, along with two other of the trade associations in Bermuda that represent international companies, we recently entered into facilitating a diversity, equity, and inclusion survey for the international business market. And we were very impressed with the response of that market. So 50% of the employees in international business, and we used government data to determine that, actually responded to the survey. And then within my organization's membership alone, 50% of our members actually participated. And also when you're talking about the international business community, 92% of those respondents, so 92% of the 50%, was actually insurance professionals. So they were insurance companies and insurance professionals. And what we've done is essentially through confidentiality, because of course the information is very sensitive. And so sometimes, people want to do better, but they're very scared about putting themselves out there if they haven't done what they think they're supposed to do. So when you actually enter into this type of thing, you are making yourself vulnerable to your workforce, because when the data comes back, you cannot argue with it, right? So you have to be prepared to make yourself vulnerable. But what we did when we combined as organizations, we made sure that that data could be collected in anonymity, and then the reports were kept very confidential. So companies get their own reports. They get no other individual data. You can't tell what the results are, because we really wanted that data to be utilized for good and to help them to make progress. Our company signed on for two kind of rounds of this, one in 2023 and one in 2025. And again, very encouraged by the fact that people that did not participate this year, but kind of heard the presentation on the raw data, said they would then participate in 2025. So again, it's just creating this environment where people can participate and they have a tool in order to do better.
And that's trust as well, isn't it?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly.
Benoît, on your side also, you've taken your new role about 2 months ago, but I'm sure you have plenty of ideas on how to promote DEI.
First, I have to look at the reality today. For instance, Chubb in France, it's 450 people and there's 39 nationalities. So, that's real, right? That's something that you can use in order to attract, cultures, different cultures and all that. We also have what we call networks in place. So we use what we call ambassadors, so connectors, people that connect people with others. And we have all these networks, specific networks. So we have a gender equality network. We also have a network that is related to parenting also, and being a parent, within the organization. And we're starting also with disability networks. So it's just to give some real visibility to people that have the ability to show and explain, whether it makes sense, to be part of diverse organization. So there's a lot of things really happening, and I think it's also about, setting the example as leaders. So it's about showing that you could have a diverse, management, organization, management board around you. It's about also specifically saying because we did discuss quite immensely about the way that we hire and the biases that we have when we hire. It's very difficult to get rid of these biases, but just the fact of knowing that there are biases. I mean, that you know, they're difficult to change, obviously, but the fact of just acknowledging the fact that they are there is also a way to, you know, to open up and attract new people. So there's all different kinds of things that we need to do. And the fact that I'm here today also after 2 months in the job says a lot about, you know, how important I consider this topic is, and the fact that, and again, we had some discussions also with Sam and Suzanne about whether there was progress in it or not. I mean, it's a little bit the story about half full and half empty, right? I think there has been some progress, but we do have lots still to do. I mean, when I just look, and I've been looking at that, you know, when LGBT, for instance, you know, situation when you have 50% of the LGBT community that does not say that, you know, now, not everybody is obliged to say that, you know, but at least they feel uncomfortable about saying and communicating about it. You know, when you also see that 55% of LGBT people, you know, hear LGBT-phobic expressions in the workplace too, I mean, then, yes, we can say that we still have lots to do. But I think we've done a lot of progress.
It's a journey, really.
Yeah, it's a journey.
Sam, perhaps before Susan actually wants to jump in. But are you feeling that the industry is making progress over time? Do you see it that way too?
Look, I think that you can't deny that things are changing. I mean, I've just launched the It Takes Boobs campaign.
Oh yeah, great campaign. You know, you should look at it, by the way.
It's been overwhelmingly positively received. I'm not sure if the same campaign 10 years ago had been released, I would have got the response that I got. So I do think that the industry is changing. I still think, though, we're not attractive to... So I think the industry wants diversity. I actually think that they're sort of sat there scratching their heads going, why are candidates not coming forward? And I think that's the problem to solve for. We have to look at the shop windows that we have, that anybody outside of the industry would be looking at to go, is this somewhere where I'm going to feel like I belong? And a lot of the insurance industry is still clinging to quite a stuffy persona that for young people, diverse people, people that haven't possibly had the same experiences in life, they're going to look at it and think it's not for me. What I think is really encouraging is most people that I know that have been in insurance, they stay there, right? We had the conversation, like people come into insurance and then they stay. So the environment itself I think is quite good. I think we don't attract people in the first instance because we don't present well. And then the other thing I would say that I think we all do on a one-to-one basis reasonably well, but don't do enough in our organizations, is being vulnerable, being honest and open. And, you know, people don't have to be the same. We found loads of things that are in common, and we're not necessarily, you know, similar in any way, shape, or form. And I think when you create environments where human beings talk to each other and open up and are very honest about who they are, then actually everybody feels included. And that's the thing that I think we've probably got to do a bit more work on. I'm sorry,
No, because everything I wanted to say, it connects so much to what you said. We've talked about creating that environment. So where I'm from in Bermuda, we have another unique, I feel like, type of divide or diversity, and we have a large international business community, but many of those international business professionals are expatriate workers. And there's very much been a tension between local and expatriate because there's been a sense over time that, you know, there are jobs in international business that are not for local people. And international business, especially since I've been where I am in other organizations, we're really trying to figure out how do we help to bridge that gap. Because our companies say all the time it's easier for us to employ someone on the island than to bring someone in with all the costs associated with that. So what we've done is, you know, is it about education? So our companies are sponsoring educational initiatives. They're bringing they're going into the schools, they're bringing kids into our workplace to demystify it. So talking about, you know, why do I get them? I remember years ago when I started, you know, I had companies saying, well, you know, we can't get interested students, you know, we keep having all these cocktail parties. And I'm like, they don't want to come to your cocktail party because that's
might want the alcohol.
No, they don't want to come to your cocktail party. That's not the way they interact. You need to find another way to reach out to them, right? And so it's really meeting them where they're at and not deciding this is the way that we do things, and you'll get that diversity. And I think that, you know, if you're committed to doing that, then you'll spend time and money to try to figure out how you reach those groups that are underrepresented. And then also I think, you know, companies need to maybe not be so hard on themselves, and maybe the public needs to not be so hard on companies. When you look at diversity, equity, and inclusion, in my opinion, it's not a template that you can apply everywhere. So for me, your organization should kind of mirror the community within which you operate, right? So your workplace should mirror that community. So you can't take a template and apply it across the board. But I think you have to spend some time, if your workplace does not mirror the community that you work from or within, and figure out how do you tap into that so that you can create that environment.
And that all requires a huge switch in terms of mindset and probably in terms of culture. And we've heard earlier today the CEO of AXA, Thomas Böbel, describing, I think that was really one sentence, the industry as being slightly dusty. I've just added the dusty one, the slightly. But we have this reputation as an insurance industry in a number of countries across the world to be quite conservative. When we speak about insurance, not we, but a number of people think about pretty senior men in great suits, which is probably the reason that we both have blue suits.
The optics are not so great.
But that, of course, requires an effort to be aware of that issue and to also make the effort to reach out to the people you'd like to include into your workforce. Perhaps one point that could be interesting, because you're all coming from different markets and working in different markets. Do you see cultural differences when it comes to D&I and how D&I is being addressed in your different markets, and perhaps different challenges also depending on the markets?
Yeah, I mean, I have a business in Australia and the UK. I have to say I've been pleasantly surprised by how forward-thinking Australia's been from the perception that I had. But I think they have a very young population, so they're looking at it slightly differently. And I think they spend an awful lot of time with their senior executives, and we talked about this, making them feel a little bit outside of their comfort zone. So I think that there are ways of uniting people by actually pushing people's personal boundaries, and I love to grow, and I think that if we want to grow as an industry, we should be pushing our individuals to kind of experience different cultures and different, if you've got an organization that is in different parts of the world, can we move some of the staff around? Can we really kind of get them embedded in those different cultures?
So I talked about the country dynamic, but I will mention one other aspect, and Sam and I were having a discussion because I'm going to try to get her to Bermuda on this initiative. But I'm on a board of an organization that was created in 2019 by two women called We Speak Bermuda, and we're just in Bermuda, but we hope to expand. And essentially, it's a train-the-trainer model. And the main purpose of the organization was to try to ensure that there was never a time when a panel was being put together and someone said, I can't find a woman to speak on that panel. And we realized that those women also had their fears of public speaking. And so we reached out into the community cross-sectorally, so not just insurance, and reached out to say, do you have a fear of public speaking? Would you like some coaching? And so we're not speaking professionals or speaking coaches, but we got a master coach, and that coach has started to do a train-the-trainer model. So people that speak often were trained to help coach others, and so we're expanding, and we're hoping to create kind of a database, if you will, so that at least in Bermuda for now, if there are conferences, which we have many, then you can empower other women to be able to stand up and actually take on some of these speaking roles. So my point is that organizations such as this, for various different purposes that can help to improve the diversity in various areas, for example in speaking, I think are also good ways to try to tackle some of this.
Yeah, I think of course there are differences in terms of the cultures, definitely, and there are maybe countries that are a little bit more advanced than others. You could see that in the attitude, definitely. But all in all, yeah, I don't think it's that extreme, specifically in the European countries nowadays. I mean, you could see the shift, also even the governments really also pushing some, and we had discussions about, for instance, implementing quotas and things like that. And again, this is not just about gender, and it's although I think we have progressed when it comes to gender, there are some other areas where we haven't really made a lot of progress, and then you think about quotas, and then you think about implementing quotas, and there you hit the culture, because in certain cultures, implementing quotas is something that is, there's a resistance in it. Maybe sometimes rightly so, because the problem with quotas, as you know, is that, what about, developing yourselves based on merit. Because if you're not based, if you are chosen because of a quota, is it going to say something about the merit of being here and the legitimacy of being here? So yes, there's certainly some different cultures, but I just want to jump on and specifically on the protecting tomorrow also aspects of the conference today. When I look at some of the challenges that we have and some of the things that really that we don't even know how to solve yet, and I'm talking about, of course, the climate change and all these issues that we have to deal with. God, it does make a lot of sense of being as many as possible, really, around the table and as diversified as possible, because it helps us to think out of the box very clearly, and that's the culture, intention. So you really, that's a real argument also in terms of, that's why you should be investing in this area very clearly. And that's why we shouldn't be really talking about it anymore. But we will, I mean, for sure. But yes, there's a little bit of frustration when it comes to that.
I can feel that.
Yeah, a little bit. Yes, a little bit.
Love and passion, frustration.
Yes. Yeah. But that's related to passion, right? Frustration, real passion, yes.
All right, so we're moving and things are progressing. That's good, I think, really. And things can be moving for different reasons. We spoke about the different initiatives in different companies or markets. But you've mentioned quotas, and quotas very often are imposed by regulation. And I think regulators are stepping in when they see that things are not moving fast enough. And we've seen that, for example, at European level, where the European Commission stepped in and decided, okay, we need to do something to ensure women's on board by setting thresholds and deadlines. We've seen also the European Commission stepping in for ensuring equal pay. So we see in Europe the regulators taking initiative at European level, but sometimes at national level as well. Do you think this is the right way forward? And I don't know whether in your respective market this is something which is being discussed as well.
Yeah, I mean, I used to say I didn't agree with quotas for exactly all the reasons we talked about. Is it the people that get the role, are they ever going to really know that they earned it? Are they going to feel less than? Will everybody else feel that they had a rough deal because they weren't part of the quota? But I think my view's changed. It's not moving quickly enough, and I have confidence that there is enough spectacular people of diverse backgrounds that will be an absolute asset to these boards, that putting a quota in is not going to negatively affect the business as a whole. And I haven't seen any indication at all that it would do. Every stat that I've seen, diverse boards, we talked about it before, ethnically diverse boards are said to be 35% more productive, gender diverse boards 25% more productive, innovation you talked about 70% more likely with a diverse board. So if they can't get to it themselves, I think absolutely it's time. As you say, we're sick of talking about it. It's a bit like I've got kids, and sometimes you have to gently cajole them into things, and sometimes you just have to tell them that that's the way it's going to be.
I think quota in a way that's easy to implement or personalize for gender, for example. But when it comes to sexual orientation, for example, that's something which
beliefs also.
Yes, yeah, as well.
I agree, but I think we have to start somewhere, and ethnic diversity and gender is a good start. I'm sure the rest will follow.
Suzanne, you're nodding. Does it mean you have been convinced now?
No, I mean, I am convinced. We were having a conversation before, and I will be less specific than I was when we were having that conversation. But essentially, I think that we wouldn't be having this conversation if we were moving fast enough in the right direction. Also, historically speaking, there have been laws that need to be put in place to move things in the right direction morally, right? And I don't need to specify what they are. So, the world would be very different if somebody didn't say, no, you're not making the right decision. Morally, you need to make this decision and nudge people along. And so I think that for that reason, but I also acknowledge what Benoît spoke about, in that if it's not done in the right way, you will create the morale in your organization will suffer because people will feel that people are getting things they don't deserve. You bring in somebody just for a characteristic and they're not suited for the job, or they're not doing the job well, or you don't give them the actual responsibility. And so people can tell that it's just been, an appointment to be a figurehead or something like that. And I think that then your organization will suffer. So you have to actually take the time and do the work to identify that person, because they're out there. They're out there. You just have to figure it out and spend that time.
Yeah. Now again, a different aspect that I would like to explore in relation to D&I, this is really the product and innovation side. Sam, I'm turning back to you again for that. How have you incorporated D&I in your product development cycle? How have you been trying to address your customers' needs? How do you do that?
Yeah, that's kind of the easy bit, I think, because, we should all be talking to our customers, and our customers in society represent a very diverse pool. So we just started with research, and obviously our brand is very specifically focused on women. And so we asked women what they liked about insurance, what they didn't like about insurance. I think most people don't get the joy out of insurance that maybe us in the room get. So it's not just a female-centric thing, but we got lots of stuff that came out from that. And we then said, okay, let's have a look at the suite of products. And I alluded to it earlier, is healthcare insurance covering the things that really matter to women? Is it covering the things that actually women are affected by on a daily basis? But beyond that, we said, well, what else is happening from a societal viewpoint for women that potentially would require cover? So we've just designed the first ever domestic abuse insurance, and we're looking to embed it in our motor insurance policy. And unfortunately, 1 in 4 women are victims of domestic abuse, and it is more of a female problem than a male problem. And perhaps not looking at a product design from a perspective of a female perspective would not allow you the opportunity to find these kind of other areas that could be insured. And I think that can come down to, any section of society. People have said to me before when I've spoken about this, but what about this, but what about that? I'm like, you do that. That's, my passion is supporting and empowering women and building products for women. But there are, and again, to the point of having diversity in your business, there's lots of other people with other passions and other kind of perspectives on the world that would create that level of innovation with your product suite.
Great. So let me look at the time and let me look at whether we've received questions from the audience. Yes, we have. So I have 3 questions. Let's see whether we manage to do all of them. The first one is, how can the insurance sector collaborate with educational institutions and industry associations to encourage more diverse talents to enter the field?
So I can speak from my experience. What ABIR has done as a trade association in Bermuda is we have collaborated with the local college. It's a 2-year college. You can get an associate's degree, but they have articulation agreements with multiple 4-year colleges in all parts of the world so that you can actually achieve a bachelor's degree after 2 years. But essentially, we have collaborated with the college as well as St. John's University in New York, College of Risk Management. And we've created, I kind of want to call it an insurance 101. It has a Bermuda market focus, but it also has a reinsurance heavy. But essentially, it takes you through all aspects. It gives you a history of reinsurance and reinsurance in Bermuda. It talks about various types of underwriting products. It goes to the ILS market, the life insurance market, all of those things. We are covering the cost of that course, so the students that are taking it don't have to pay for it. And we also have opened it up, and we can thank COVID for this. It's opened up to the general public. So virtually anybody in Bermuda, or otherwise actually, can register and hear about the market. And I've found that, you are servicing people that are making career changes. So they've decided, I want to get into the insurance industry, and these are people that might have been doing other things. And so if you want to talk about diversity of thought, people that were doing other careers for most of their life and they want to make a change, they can just sign up and take this course, and it goes over the course of a term, a college term, and they're getting information, kind of baseline information about the industry. And then you have students who may not be sure about what they want to do, or they may not understand what the industry is, and they may be hesitant because they may think it's boring, and then they take this course, and all of a sudden they understand that it's not actually boring, it has so many facets. So the point I would make is that you can reach out as an organization and figure out how you can collaborate to get more interest in this particular industry, and how you can expand the reach so that you can get a more diverse workforce.
Yeah. I think a lot of us, have arrived in insurance by accident, really. So that means, it was whether, maybe a specific topic that was attractive, whether it was, the company itself, but not a lot of people have said, I just want to become an insurance. But we have programs now, and for instance, we've been doing this now for a few years. We have apprenticeship. Apprenticeship in France is really developing. It's really growing, and we've got apprenticeship in actuarial principles. So we're attracting now younger people to come over with us and spend two years with us. And of course, the objective is to make sure that after this apprenticeship, which is 2 years, that we have jobs for them and they stay with us. And surprisingly, we've got a very big percentage of people that actually end up staying. And the other aspect also that surprises me too is that with these apprenticeships, they're directly linked with actual work, which is numbers, Sam.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, there's more females than males, really. So it seems that it attracts more, maybe from our little, point of view, because maybe generally speaking that is not the case, but at least as far as we are concerned, it does. So therefore, it participates in the diversification of the company. So I think, opposed to what it used to be before, we have to be much more proactive in getting out there and saying to everybody, it's not just about, covering a car insurance. There's a lot of things that we can do in insurance, and specifically tackling all the challenges that we have ahead of us. Really, it's the more creativity, the more outside of the box the better it will be, clearly. So we've got ammunition to give, I think, much more than we used to.
That's good.
And universities want our connection. I went out to Salford Data Science University the other week, and they're so keen to engage with the industry. I think we're just a bit too frightened to play with stuff. You don't have to put the insurance product out and lose the business millions. You can do it in an artificial environment and just play with the numbers, see what comes out of it, find some solutions. I think some of the fixed thinking kind of translates into this, and you put a problem into a room full of fresh, excitable students and ask them to come up with answers. You just have no idea what they'll come back with.
All right, thank you. I think it's about time to wrap up now. A couple of points from my side that I'd like to take from that discussion. The first one is really my own personal emotional roller coaster, moving from love to frustrations. Probably both are linked. The second thing is that we can see the glass half empty or half full. I'm very happy that you are optimistic persons by nature. The industry is moving, we're making progress. It's probably not fast enough, but I'm pretty sure that you as industry leaders, you're going to challenge the industry and push it to move faster in the right direction. And the third point, I really think that, coming back to the initial question I raised with my contacts, my relatives and so on, but definitely D&I in insurance matters. It's not only a nice thing to do, but it's also about caring for your employees, for your customers, for society. It's also about caring about the performance and the innovation capacity and the reputation of your own company. So that's definitely very important. Final thing, for those who are interested into D&I and insurance, I would invite you to visit the D&I Hub on the Insurance Europe website, and there you'll find plenty of inspiration on how you could address, as a company or a national association, D&I in your market. And last but not least, I would like to invite all the audience to join me into thanking our very dynamic and stimulating panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank
again.
you.
Good wrap up.